You know, when I wrote it, immediately it changed my life. It wasn't like it came out and then did well and yeah, now my life has changed. No, when I wrote A Lot More Free, I felt the weight lifted, and that's how I knew it was.
Is that the first time you talked about that ever?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was brutal. And that's what those lyrics are, you know? Like, for me, it was a cry of freedom for myself. Like, we talk about writing music for yourself. I have not talked in depth about what A Lot More Free is about basically ever in my memory. And I think it's been long enough and everybody is healed.
Hi, I'm Ben Earl, and this is my new podcast, Country Roads. This is where I sit down with some of my favourite country artists to talk about the places that have inspired their music, whether it's the landscapes that have shaped them, the towns and cities that they're from, or even the roads they have travelled on to find a sense of home. Kind of like if their lives were a collection of postcards, where would they be from? Now, this is together where we'll find out. So get comfy, get ready for an adventure. This is Country Roads. And speaking of adventures, my guest this week has been on a wild ride over the last few years. Max McNown, I mean, he's almost a star that never was. And when you hear our chat, you'll understand what I mean by that. I mean, his story is incredible. He never set out to be an artist, and now he's on top of the world. But after meeting him, I can say, honestly, even though his success has been so rapid, he is the real deal. I mean, he's a true songwriter that shoots straight from the heart. He's also not afraid to be vulnerable and share deeply personal stories from his own life. He's so prolific as well. I mean, the sheer amount of songs he's writing puts me to shame. I'm not going to lie, I feel quite intimidated. He's got a massive back catalogue already. He's only been making music for 3 years. He's already surpassed 10 million monthly listeners on Spotify as well, in no small part due to his viral hit, A Lot More Free. And he'll exclusively reveal in this chat the real events behind that song. For the first time ever, he's telling that story. I was quite honoured to hear it, actually. He's also really driven by helping people heal through his music. And it's nowhere more evident than in that song. And that song means so much to so many people. Genuinely excited for you to hear this one. This is Max McNown.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling, like I was saying a moment ago, I got end of tour blues. This is the final show of our tour across the pond. And I'm just, very grateful. I'm in a great mood, but it's always kind of a dump of dopamine, and you build up all this stress and kind of routine on the road, and you just do the shows over and over and over again, and then suddenly it's done, you know, and that's what it's going to feel like tonight, and it always hits so hard.
We were just talking before we started recording, and I think you said you've done 140-ish shows
roughly,
this year.
Yep.
What's the one thing that you kind of bring with you that makes you feel grounded and sort of still like at home? Because 140 shows away, that's a lot to be away from home for.
Yeah, I think the most important part is just the crew that I travel with. It really does feel like a family, and it is, you know, they say home is where the heart is, but it's like, when I'm not in Oregon, it's hard for me to feel at home because I lived 21 years there and I'm 24. So it hasn't been long since I was in Oregon. So the Northwest in the U.S. Feels like home to me, but having a crew that lifts you up, loves you for who you are and not for the money, not for the fame, not for the job itself. It's like that, I think, is the number one factor in making yourself feel comfortable on the road. And then also, I mean, journaling is huge too. When you're playing so many shows, sometimes you go through a whole show and you don't have a moment to process it or take it all in. And so to be able to write that down later tonight, how you're feeling, how you felt, or the next morning, you know, that kind of helps me work through some of the emotions that I'm feeling that can sometimes go numb from doing something over and over and over again, even something so wonderful and like something you should be so grateful for. If you do it over and over and over again, it's not that it gets monotonous,
Yeah.
but your mind numbs to the vastness of what you're doing.
100%.
You know?
When I first started coming up with my band, I was sort of 26, 27, and I went through a period of journaling, and I still got some of them. I look back at, what you write after the show. What's amazing is in 10 years, if you read that back,
Yeah.
you're going to feel like, oh, wow. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I've been writing in this journal, this exact journal. I pasted some pages from an older journal way back when I was like 14 or 15 years old. So this journal has stuff from when I was 11. So I look back and I read it, and it's really cool because there's so many times that I mention this dream of mine to do music, and I never would tell anybody about it. It was always just something that I kept in the back of my mind, and I never even thought I would try. And so to go back and read my 14-year-old self saying, like, someday I'd love to be a singer, but the more realistic option is to yada, 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 you know?
You're writing that at 14, but what was the more realistic option?
At the time, it was get a degree in business. I was studying business communications online at Arizona State University, and my goal was to work in management. I love people. And that's been one of the reasons why I love this career so much, but I've always wanted to do something in the service industry. So I worked at Starbucks for 2.5 years. I became a shift supervisor there, and that was kind of my fill of human interaction, and I love it. And so this career is just that on a grander scale.
Yeah.
So my plan was to work up to management in Starbucks, and then whether it's Starbucks or something else, just kind of find something. The ultimate goal was to just try to support a spouse, a family, at some point. And that was my bar,
Wow. I'm just blown away by that. That is worlds away from what I was expecting. I knew you worked at Starbucks. I didn't realize the dream at that time. Well, the dream, but the realistic dream.
The realistic dream. Yeah. I really didn't view music as a valid or realistic possibility.
Wow.
And so when I read back on the journal notes, it honestly makes me emotional because it's like I did not believe in myself. I didn't believe that it could possibly be real.
That must be so amazing. Like, playing these huge, your shows are growing and growing. Your audience is getting bigger, coming to see you. And reading that back, having that reality check at that young age.
Perspective shift.
Because the thing is, you're kind of right.
Yeah.
To make it in music is just like, to do
insane.
this is just, it's a silly thing to do.
Yeah.
But you've got to be such a dreamer to do it. And the fact that you're here, that must just be the most... I got goosebumps thinking about it. It's amazing, the fact you're doing that.
Yeah, well, reading back, it's a perspective shift. It's, as we just said, like, when you're doing it for a long time, sometimes you lose sight of how grateful you should be, And something that keeps me grounded is not just journaling now, but reading back and, seeing who I was, what I wanted to do, what would my younger self think if he saw me now, that will put you in this position, this outlook of gratitude that makes you, your day-to-day life is better, the shows are better because you feel that gratitude for the fans every single night. And so that's super important because I feel like if you lose sight of that, it's really dangerous.
Yeah.
If you lose sight of who you were, that's where you go off your rocker,
There's so much wisdom already. I can't believe it. Let's start your childhood though, because I want to really know, because I looked up where you grew up. Your hometown is Bend in Oregon.
It's a bit of a double. So I lived in Bend for a few years after high school, and Bend is probably my favorite place in the whole world.
Okay.
So I like to claim that I'm from Bend, Oregon, because partially I am. I lived most of my young life in West Lynn, Oregon.
Okay.
So it's about 20 minutes south of Portland.
Okay, yeah.
So I lived there throughout, my early years through high school. I had a brief stint in Bend with my family, and it didn't work out, so we came back. But that's where I got the taste. And then after high school, I moved to Southern California, and when California was inevitably too expensive and I was suffering over there, I was deciding where to go next.
Yeah.
And at that point I had enough, because I'd started street performing.
Yeah.
So I had enough of an idea of what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do music with all my heart. And so I was thinking, should I go to Nashville or should I go back to Oregon and kind of hone in on what makes me a little more? Because my home is a huge part of who I am. And so I decided to move to Bend again. And I lived in Bend for almost 2 years. And then I moved to Nashville after kind of building who I am as an artist better.
Well, what is Bend like? Because I saw it's close to the Cascade Mountains.
Yes,
which is
yep.
incredible.
Yeah,
It's like an amazing
Cascades.
outdoors. Can you just paint a picture of what it's like?
Yeah,
The scenery.
So imagine everywhere you go, the air smells like fresh pine needles. It's like, it is the best smell of any city. And it seems silly, but that is huge for just mental state. Like when it just smells wonderful. And it's because there's so many pines, you know?
Yeah.
But it's a high desert. So I love the cold. My philosophy is you can always put more blankets on, but you can only take so many pieces of clothing
See,
off.
I'm complete opposite of you.
Okay.
I'm like, there's never enough jumpers.
Yeah. Well, Bend is the perfect combination because rather than rain, which most of Oregon gets rain, but Bend specifically, because it's a high desert, it's just smack dab in the center of Oregon. When it would rain in other places, it more often snows there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And what snow brings is snowboarding, skiing, sledding, car sledding, hiking,
And you're doing all those things as a kid? Is that what you're doing? You're like going outside and...
Yes.
Wow.
I didn't snowboard, but I skied a little bit. But so that brings its own activities. Whereas like rain kind of puts a damper on things.
We know about rain in the UK.
Yeah.
You don't need to educate us on rain.
Yeah. So, and the very best part, or at least one of the best parts about Bend, it's warm in the day. It's typically super nice and sunny because it gets, cooked by the sun since it's really high elevation. And then at night it gets freezing cold. And so for me, sleeping was way better, and all the activities around that you could do year round, you float the river, you go out on, one of my friends had a sailboat, we take it out on lakes.
Wow.
Nature is so huge for me, and Bend is the pinnacle of natural beauty. Like within arm's length distance, it's basically a desert, like a full sand desert, like what you'd see in Star Wars on a different planet. And then you go just a little bit that way and it's mountains. And then you go a little bit this way and it's waterfalls and rivers. And it's just everything you could want in nature is right within about an hour of Bend.
Like I said, I looked it up. It looks just stunning.
Yeah.
I'd love to know about your household though, because your dad was playing Zac Brown band in the house. Is that right? And that's sort of part of the other reason you got into music.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, it's not just one of the main reasons I got into music. It's also the type of music I make is the way it is because of my dad. So some of my favorite memories of my entire life are listening to music that my dad was showing me. So when I write music, it's, and I totally understand different perspectives and different, like, you write for certain reasons. But one of the things that I try to keep very prominent in my music is almost entirely family friendly. So it meant so much to me to listen to music with my dad. And so one of the greatest rewards for me is seeing families at my shows, like young kids with their parents, with their grandparents. Like, that's the stuff I love to see.
Yeah.
And that's because of my dad. Like, that's why I write music in that way, to try to make it so that families can enjoy it together. Yeah.
I love that image though. So your dad is basically in the hallway and he's like playing Zac Brown band, and you're one of four, is that right?
I am one of five.
One of five.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have my oldest brother JJ, second oldest brother is Brock, my younger brother is Rowan, and then the youngest kid in our family is Sela, my little sister. Yeah, she's got 4 older brothers.
Is that are you very protective of her?
I am, but she's with a wonderful man, and I am very supportive and excited for their future.
But I read there's quite a lot of sort of trauma in your sort of childhood, in your family, because obviously Brock, your brother, was quite sick when he was younger.
Yeah, and I didn't fully go into that, but when I moved to California, that was the main reason. Actually,
really?
It was, so it wasn't just changing the kind of scene. It was definitely part of it. But I'll tell you, since we have time, I'll tell you the whole story. Yeah. So basically, I was working at Starbucks. I was working in Oregon around Westland area, and I was working typically overtime, about 45 hours a week, which for some people that's not a lot, but for me at that time it was. And I didn't love where I was and who I was, and then when Brock was diagnosed at 19, I ended up, when that happens, when cancer hits a family, it does just that. It hits the family. And the person with cancer obviously is going through the most difficult thing. But I would say second to that is my mother, for just being all in and being with him through everything. She was literally not leaving his side for years. But what that does is it kind of throws a bit of a wrench in the family dynamic that you used to have. And so for a while, I was kind of figuring things out on my own a little bit. And I was making a lot of mistakes. And it was all boiling up, and I didn't know it was. And so, music aside, I had no plans on doing anything with music. But I was working one day, and my mom was actually grocery shopping at this place called Market of Choice, and there's a Starbucks right next to it that I was borrowing at, which means it's not my home store, but I was working there that day. And so she was there, around that time, and I was about to go on lunch. So I was like, oh, Mom, let's have lunch together. And so I went on the patio of the Starbucks, and she sat with me, and, mother's intuition, she immediately knew that there's something up, and I didn't. She knew before I did. And so we were just sitting, and I was a little quiet, but I felt normal. And she was like, Max, are you okay? Like, what, is there something going on? And I was like, yeah, I think I'm good. I'm just working. I kind of put a smile on my face, and she just got really serious and went, Max, what's wrong? And I just started bawling. Like, I didn't know that it was taking a toll on me until that moment. And I just said, I think I need to do something. I need to change something. This is too much for me. There's, there was definitely a looming sadness in the household for years. And I was 21, and I wanted to go do something. Like, I had been in Oregon for 21 years, and I was like, what can I do? She's like, well, you could join her brother, my uncle Seth, and Vanessa, his wife, in California, and you could live with them for a little bit and just kind of clear your mind and change the scene. And I was like, I want to do that. And so within 2 months, I moved, and I had no plans on doing music. If my dad wouldn't have, when I was fully packed up and I was about to leave the driveway, and my dad opened the door back up and handed me one of his old guitars. It was an Epiphone. Wow. And he just said, people love somebody who can strum. You should try to learn some chords. And
so you hadn't played a guitar till you were 21? Like not really.
Yeah. I knew the shape of a G chord, and that was just about it. And so he gave me that, and I was like, sure, thanks, Dad. Like, that's really kind of you.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, but I didn't, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to pursue music with this. It was just like, oh, thanks, this will be fun to try. And then, fast forward, I moved to California, start picking certain strings that make certain noises, and start.
That is crazy.
I started just writing poetry, really.
I was going to say, cause were you writing? Cause I've heard you describe your country-centric sound, sort of like what you love about it is poetry over music, almost. But just to circle back to Brock quickly within that, because you wrote a song for him, Can't Hide Light,
correct.
When did that come in that story?
Can't Hide Light came when I visited Nashville for the first time. So
a bit later. Okay.
Yeah, so I moved, so he battled lymphoma, Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer from 19 through 24, so 5 years. And so I was 22. So by the time he was clean of it, I had already been in music for a little bit, because I moved to California at 21. Started street performing, started garnering some social media momentum. And then I moved back to Bend, as I said. And before I moved to Nashville, I actually took 3 separate trips to just kind of write music and see what it's like. And so he was still battling his cancer when I visited Nashville for the first 3 times. And so the second time I visited that, I wrote that for the Wandering album. So it was still very, I think about songs and albums pertaining to eras of life, stages of life, and so that was the stage that I was in when I wrote Can't Hide Light.
I mean, everything you're saying is incredible. I mean, I've been writing music for, I'm professionally 15 years. And when I talk about stages, I'm like, that was 10 years ago. This has all happened in the space of 3 years.
Yeah.
This is incredible. And I've like I said, I was going through your catalogue. You've written so many songs.
Yeah.
And so many kind of real songs about your family, particularly. That song, I mean, like you said, Brock is clean of it now, which is incredible. It's an amazing thing. But
he just hit 2 years of remission.
Congratulations, Brock. That is amazing. But there's another one you have actually called 97, which is about your
my great-grandfather.
Yeah. Which is amazing.
Yeah, the reason I released that, so circling back to songs and albums being eras of life, that EP that I just put out is not my current era. of life. And I was a little hesitant to put it out. I didn't know if it was ever going to come out. I've already written 11 new songs for the next album.
Yeah.
And I plan January, February, we plan on writing roughly 50 more. So we want to have a plethora of options. But what that EP is, and it was before most of the songs from Night Diving, The Cost of Growing Up, were written. So I was hesitant, and I didn't know if I wanted to release those because I didn't feel like they were the sound that I was going for right now, and I wanted to kind of get going to... You know, when you write a song, I mean, as a songwriter, you'll totally understand this. The newest song is almost always the best song.
Yeah.
You know? So it's really hard to differentiate when you've heard a song 1,000 times, when you're mixing it and all that, and then you write this new fresh thing, and you're obsessed with that, you know? And so that's kind of how I felt. And whether that's right or wrong, who knows? But the thing that kind of kicked me in the pants to really put that EP out was my great-grandfather at 99 just passed away. And I wrote that song after I visited him 2 years prior. And we visited him, and my Nana had just passed away. So he just lost his wife of 75 years. Wow. And it was so heavy and so emotional. And my dad, you know, was with us. And I saw my dad cry with him and apologize for moving away. And my grandpa was like, no, like you are your own person. It's your own life. Like, he was totally loving and understanding. But there was so much emotion. And so on the way home, this would be considered the poetry I was writing before I actually started doing music, because this was, you know, a while back. And on the drive home, I was just looking around, and I just wrote in my notes the different lyrics of 97. I got the song started, and then I completed it later on with two of my friends, Jesse Reeves and Michael Farron. And once it was completed, that was when I realized that it was a meaningful song, like a really meaningful song to me. It really came to be something that, I mean, when I sing it live, and I'm not doing it right now at this tour, but I've done it at a few one-off gigs, and it hits me so hard every time. And so that, coupled with him just passing away at 99, my grandmother texted me, his daughter, and she was like, hey, is that 97 song ever coming out? I was like, okay, I know what I have to do. You know, so that's why that EP came out.
Yeah.
And 97 is the song that made it release, really.
But like, I know how hard it is to write those true stories. Mm-hmm. You know, to get in a moment like that where you're with your great grandfather and you're, you know, to encapsulate that emotion, to get it into words, distill it into 3.5 minutes is really, it's firstly a skill. You've honed so quickly. Mm-hmm. I think you've got to be a bit of an old soul to do that. I mean, do you feel like have you always been an old soul, even since you were a kid, but you're always thinking deeply about things?
Yes. I've always been a very deep thinker, sometimes to my own detriment. I was a super romantic in high school. You know, I wanted to find that person that I was going to spend my life with.
Is that in the journals? Is that?
Yeah. Oh, that's in there. That's in there. Yeah. Yeah. I won't show my wife now all the different journals where I'm like, I think this is the one. I'm like 14 years old. Yeah. But I've always been I've had emotional depth, and I think it's largely due to my dad. And I think the old soul part of it, I have great respect and reverence for my grandparents, and specifically my grandfather on my mom's side, Dale Ebel. And he was a pastor for a long time, and he's still with us. He's the best, one of the greatest humans that I've ever had the privilege of knowing. And so I think just having role models like him and his wife, my grandmother, I think that helps with the depth and with the further understanding of certain aspects of life that you usually don't learn about until you get older, you know? And so I've had that instilled in me from a very young age. And I think that songwriting comes from my dad, because my dad speaks in analogies. He's hilarious. It was so nice as a kid because he knew how to help you understand things by using an example that you understand. And so as I matured, the analogies got more and more beautiful and heady, and I think that just learning about life through analogies really sets you up to be a songwriter.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? So I think the old soul, I get that comment so many times, and I love it. The music being so personal to me is the essence of why I do this.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see too much of a point in putting out songs that I don't relate to just to grow and make it, you know, to writing songs. I think it was Rick Rubin that said this: the best thing you can do for the people who listen to your music is write music for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when and actually I got really emotional on stage last night, and that never happens. But the thing that triggered it was I looked out at the crowd, and this is the biggest show. These two in London are the biggest shows of this run across the pond. And I looked out at this crowd of, 2,000 plus people. And I told them, before I sang the next song, I just said, look, seeing all of you here really reminds me of how powerful music is. And, they cheered and it's fun. And I was like, isn't music so powerful? And I've had the privilege of hearing stories from so many of y'all about how my music has helped you. And that is the greatest gift that I can receive from this career, because that's what I set out to do.
Yeah.
Because music saved my life, and music was what got me through the darkest moments of my life. And right when I said that, something switched, and I saw every single person in the room as an individual, and it just overwhelmed me. But all that to say, music helped me. I don't know where I'd be without it. I don't see a point in writing songs that aren't meant to help people.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of artists learn this later in their career, where they realize that actually it's not about you. It's about, and if you just make it about you, then you're destined to fail. Because if your ego just can't.
Oh my
take
gosh.
it.
Yeah.
If it is about everyone else, and you really realize that, like you have, you'll do it forever, because, and you're building this fan base in the most incredible way. I'm fascinated though, just in terms of the sort of chronology of your story.
Yeah.
So when you go to California, what? Because you said you were a bit afraid to pursue music almost. What made you then start? Because you were busking on the pier, weren't you?
Yeah.
Pretty much. What was the what got you on that pier?
Yeah. So I had no self-confidence in most things. It wasn't just my confidence in my own voice. I actually hated the sound of my own voice.
Do you still?
Every once in a while, it creeps up on me, and I have to consciously shove those thoughts away.
Yeah.
Because it's like when you hear your voice in a video, it's, you're like, oh, I sound like that? You sound one way in your head. Yeah, exactly. And it was actually literally last night, I was telling my wife, I'm like, I feel like I sound weird. Do I sound weird? Like I started to spiral. So it still happens. But so lack of self-confidence in that. Lots of stuff I could get into in another day about high school, and I had a really difficult time and very self-conscious. And
wait, were you an outlier? Is that why, do you think? Or because the poetry and the old...
I think that's part of it. I also didn't feel like... It's a much longer story, but in a nutshell, I went to a new school. I followed my brother Brock, actually, to a new school that I knew nobody at. And the only thing I knew was what certain kids looked like under a football helmet, because I played against them for most of my young life. And my first year, I was playing summer baseball, and I... hit a single, and I stepped, the kid had his leg across the plate, and I stepped weird, fell, and my knee hyperextended, and I broke it in several places. So that took that away from me. So because
you were an amazing runner as well, weren't you? Is that right?
I was pretty fast. In track, I did the 100, 200, 4x1, and 400.
So how fast were you in 100 meters?
Fastest time was 11.6.
So you're really fast. Crazy fast. Wow, so breaking your knee is a big deal.
Yes, and that was my only connection. And so, this is where the self-consciousness began. Because in middle school, I was on top of the world, man. When you're in grade 8, you're just like, I know everything, And then the sports were taken from me, and I wasn't gonna be a pro. Like I'm not one of those people that's like, I was gonna make it to the big leagues, and then I broke my knee and everything. No, everybody else got bigger and faster, and I stayed the same. I'm 5'7". I wasn't ready to pursue professional sports, but sports were my connection to the new school, and so that kind of set into place a bit of a spiral where I didn't know who I was, and I was hanging out with. When you talk about outliers, it's like, I definitely started to hang out with different people, and honestly, that was a huge blessing for me to kind of get to know lots of different kids. Back then, my dream was to try to be with the popular group. That's what I feel like so many kids in high school want. And looking back, I realized how important so many of the awesome relationships and friendships I formed with the people that didn't quite fit, that has helped me in my songwriting. But anyway, that was kind of the start of the self-consciousness and the not knowing where I belong. And then that coupled with, I went to the school, we actually got in by a raffle. It was it's an expensive public school. It's called Lake Oswego. And every one of my friends, just about every one of my friends, was going into something after high school where they seemed to have the framework of their life planned out for the next 5-10 years. And I had no idea who I was or what I was doing. And that was really difficult for me.
And you've got the stuff at home as well happening.
Yep.
That's all bubbling away.
All happening at the same time. When I was a sophomore in high school when Brock was diagnosed. So sophomore, junior, senior, it was all through his cancer. So I was very lost. Yeah. And to circle back and answer your question, in California, I started working at a Starbucks over there. And I made some great friends at Starbucks. And
say made some great drinks.
Oh, I did. I
really thought you were going to say that.
No, I can make some mean latte art. Yeah. No.
So I made some great friends. Sorry.
Yeah. Both. Great friends, great lattes. That's what I was doing at Starbucks. But one of my friends in particular, Jordan, he came over and we were sipping some whiskey and we got a fire going on the little patio of my tiny apartment. And I got my guitar out, and I probably wouldn't have done this if I wasn't a little bit tipsy from, having some whiskey. But I wanted to show him some of the poetry / songs that I was writing. Most of them were a verse and a chorus. And so I sang them for him, and he was so encouraging. He was like, dude, you could do something with this. You should try to do something with this. And I was like, no. There's just no chance,
I've got to remind everyone, this is like 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
This is like a long time ago. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah.
And he was sitting on the patio and he was like, how can I convince you? Like, you sound great. I want you to try to do this. And I was like, I don't see where to start. I don't really know what to do. And I don't believe in myself at all. Like, I was very open about it. I was like, I don't like the sound of my own voice. And he's like, okay, then if you're not going to do it for yourself, can you do it for me? Can you just go down to the pier and just sing for strangers? Wow. He's like, you don't sound bad, I promise you. And so at least just go down and see what happens. And on the first night that I went out and I performed on the pier, I made $93, which in an hour and a half, that's great money compared to what I was making at Starbucks. And I had several different comments that were so sweet about how I bless their evening by singing, and like different strangers would come up and give me encouragement, and it was just every little thing I was holding on to. It was fuel, And then I also got a free taco. Luckily it was fully wrapped and it was safe and delicious.
There's no hair in it. No.
Yeah. And then I also got a girl's number and a $5 bill. And I joke, my wife hates this joke, but I joke that those are the three things that a man needs in life: money, food, and a good woman, And so I was like, maybe there's something to this music thing after all. And so then it was, that started the journey. I remember I posted on Instagram, and you can go back and find it. It's me sitting on the pier playing, and I said, I took my first step in pursuing my dream today. And that was the caption of it. That led to me doing that 3 or 4 times a week for roughly 2 hours each time. And every piece of encouragement, every little bit of love that I got was so much fuel for me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't believe at all in myself. And so everybody that would tell me just a little bit more, I'd start to believe just a little bit. And I had someone come up to me named Jamie on the pier, and this wonderfully kind woman, and she came up and she said, you sound a lot like Zach Bryan when you sing Tyler Childers. Have you ever thought about singing Zach Bryan? And I have a somewhat toxic personality trait. I don't like to jump on bandwagons. And if I don't feel like I was there for the come up, I have a hard time jumping on board.
I was the same as that, Bryan. Same.
Yeah. So I was like, Zach Bryan just blew up right under my nose, and I never listened. I never saw, like, I don't want to jump on now. And I also had my own little, like, Sam Birchfield and Gregory Alan Isakov before he was, really what he is now. I had these artists that were so personal to me, and those were the people that I listened to. And I was like, I don't think so. I don't think I'll really sing him. And she goes, well, what if you want to be unique, what if I sent you his unreleased songs from SoundCloud that I found and you could learn those? And so I was like, okay, you drive a hard bargain. And so I sent her a video that night of me learning one of the songs. It's called Get Out Alive. And I'm not sure if he's ever actually released it. I think it might just be on SoundCloud. And I was learning it and I sent it to her, and she's in a fan page on Facebook. And so she posted me learning it. And Zach Bryan's dad found the video and commented on it. Well done, sir. That's all he said.
Wow.
And that changed my entire world. Just that. And what happened, the effects of that, roughly 50 people from that Facebook group followed me on Instagram.
Yeah.
The very first time anybody has followed me for my music in my entire life. And that was, I talk about where it began a lot. That was one of the biggest turning points. It was like, oh my gosh, people are following me because they want to hear more of my voice, which was baffling to me. But that encouraged me to keep doing it.
It's so refreshing to hear an artist really talk very openly about self-doubt, because I think we're sort of encouraged, especially my generation, I'm slightly older than you, is like you just put on a show. It's like, don't talk about how you actually feel, but and that self-doubt, it drives us. You'll never lose it. Like, it will drive you.
Yeah.
Gosh, there's so much I want to ask you.
I think with the increase in social media and the reach that it has now, I think that's the main reason you don't see pop stars like you used to. So many stars, even some of the biggest people, are vulnerable now.
Yeah,
because
be vulnerable.
You can't hide it.
No.
You can't hide it anymore. Like back in the day, there was nothing. Like the rock bands of old, like they would just do the craziest things, and there was a mystique around them. They're like this mythological creature, And nowadays, it's like you can't really hide that much. You kind of have to be who you are, and then let people take you for what you are.
We have to obviously get to a lot more free, which I know you've probably spoken about like a zillion.
Yeah.
There's an amazing video that you shared recently of some people at penitentiary or prison, I don't say.
Yeah, it's a Pickaway County Correctional Institution.
I mean, firstly, can you describe the video? I've seen it, but if you could describe it and then your feeling when you first saw that video.
Yeah, so it was actually sent to me by my agent that works radio for me. Her name is Heather, and I was recording at Blackbird Studio in Nashville, recording some of the new tracks for the next album. And I just got this video, and she doesn't text me ever. And so I knew it was somewhat important. I knew that she really wanted me to see this. And so I open it up, and it is just, there is a thing that several prisons are doing with over 300 participants, and it is called the Harmony Project, but the song that they have for this season is A Lot More Free. And so the Harmony Project is across 3 different prisons, and I think that they're in Ohio, in the area of Ohio. And they sing together. There's a choir of men and women, and they just sing songs that maybe help them. Who knows how it helps them. But seeing a group of 40, 50 prisoners singing about being a lot more free. I mean, I got choked up right then and there. I showed it to my wife. I showed it to my uncle. I showed it to everybody I could. And I was like, I want to post something about this. So I went to the person who posted that video. I believe his name is David Brown. I reached out to him and I was like, hey, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, this is one of the biggest blow me back moments of my entire career. Is there any way I could get this original video? I'd love to post it and tag you and put all the information on it for your project. And he was so kind, and he just immediately got back to me and was like, yes, absolutely. Like, so cool to see a message from you. Here's the original video. And so I put it on my Instagram, and that video has resonated with a lot of people.
It's amazing. And I don't just considered it. I've watched it a few times. But like you say, almost the irony of the fact that they're singing about being more free. But the thing is, you wrote that song about yourself, and you can see how much it means to them in that video. They're not just singing a song. You can see the lyrics are really, and that's why it's hit so hard, because and that's the thing as a songwriter, you've done that. You've written a song that's for yourself. Yeah. But everyone finds their truth in it.
And A Lot More Free specifically, obviously, that was the breakout single. That was a song that put me on the map for all intents and purposes.
And can I just ask as well with that? Like it was a year really after it came out.
I called it mini viral. So it went mini viral 3 times, and then it went real viral. So it took a lot of posting, and honestly, this is some encouragement for any artists that are listening. Keep posting. You know, social media, I have, you know, millions of followers on platforms, right? And most of my videos get seen on TikTok by roughly 5% of those. Seen, not even liked. The viewership. So, and most of it is actually non-followers. So the algorithms are not, you know, spoon feeding over and over again your stuff to these people. Because I used to get self-conscious with A Lot More Free specifically, because I'd get the occasional, the occasional comment of, I'm so tired of this song. I'm so tired of this song. And that was very rare, but it would happen. And you know, one hate comment outweighs 100 nice comments, right? And so I'd see that and I'd be like, maybe I am kind of ruining the song by posting it too much. And that was the first time it went mini viral. If I would have stopped posting then, I would be nowhere near where I am now. And so when you're the one posting, it feels like it's overwhelming because you see it every time. You're making the video. But what you don't realize is the percentage of your followers that it goes to is not only tiny, but also different almost every single time. But A Lot More Free for me was a cry of freedom for myself. Like we talk about writing music for yourself. I have not talked in depth about what A Lot More Free is about basically ever in my memory. And I think it's been long enough and everybody is healed. But basically it was just my journey of being cheated on in a relationship. And the betrayal that felt like, the heartbreak, the heartache, the worst relational sadness I've ever felt in my entire life. And I wasn't over it yet when I wrote A Lot More Free. And A Lot More Free came along in my life. It changed my life. You know, when I wrote it, immediately it changed my life. It wasn't like it came out and then did well and now my life has changed. No, when I wrote A Lot More Free, I felt the weight lifted. And that's how I knew it was.
Is that the first time we talked about that ever?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And she and I have no hard feelings, and I'm full of forgiveness for the whole situation, and I wish her all the best. But it was brutal. And that's what those lyrics are, you know, like. But it took. I had been far enough removed to realize I was already on that musical journey. Freezing in November, my first song. I had hoped it would do 10,000 streams in my entire life, and it hit 1 million streams within 3 months. And so I already had a bit of momentum, and I had an inkling that if that wouldn't have happened, I would not be who I am or where I am doing what I'm doing. And so that was enough to know that escaping that and going through that is the reason that my life led to freedom. Yeah. So if I would have stayed in that, who knows who I would be? You know, I wouldn't have pursued music. I mean, I wouldn't have written A Lot More Free, that's for sure. Yeah. And who knows if I would have even pursued music. I mean, I wrote Freezing in November after all of it. Yeah. So I was street performing before I wrote Freezing in November. And it's really just, and I've touched on that in a few other songs. The Cost of Growing Up is one of them. The chorus resolves with, I've seen trees grow after fire, crying rivers make a bluff, and you can't love without the loss, and that's the cost of growing up. Yeah. And that is the same sentiment as A Lot More Free. It was the realization that, man, that sucked. Yeah. That hurt really, really bad. But I believe that God works in mysterious ways. And I think that there's a plan in it all. And breaking free from something unhealthy, as painful as it is, it can often be what saves your life.
And that's why that video is just very, very quick. We'll do some quick fire questions in a sec. You're living in Nashville now. Yeah. What are your favorite spots in Nashville right now?
Favorite spots? Frothy Monkey. Coffee. Love Frothy Monkey. Yeah. I really love Sweet Cece's, this frozen yogurt place. That's also one of my favorites.
I live 14-year-old again.
Yeah. I walked in one day and they were playing my music, so I'm super biased. And then I lived in West Nashville in the Nations for a long time, and so that has a very high sentimental value to me. So the Nations, West Nashville, 51st Deli, Frothy Monkey, the whole area there is awesome.
Nice. Yeah. 5 Points. I know it's East, but 5 Points Pizza. Are you a fan of
that? 5 Points. That's East. I stayed there on 2 of my 3 trips before I moved there. So yes, very fond of East.
Every day.
Honestly, Nashville is probably my favorite city in the world. Like, just it's the least city feeling city. Yeah. And I actually would put London up there too. I really love London. And I'm not just saying that. Truly.
Sure.
Yeah. London, Nashville, Amsterdam.
Yeah. Max, thank you so much for coming to Country Roads. I've genuinely loved every second of it.
Me as well.
Yeah, have a great show tonight, man.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to do my best.
And just like that, Series 1 is done. And I couldn't wish for a better person to wrap things up with than Max. I mean, I love that conversation, and I walked away genuinely inspired, particularly as a songwriter. I mean, I've been writing songs, my whole life, but I've been in the Shires for 14 years. And I think Max just reminded me like how naive you can be and how naive you should be writing songs. You just go in there, tell your stories, and he just reminded me of that. And I think I'm going to get back to that. If you're a regular listener, you'll notice that we completely ran out of time for the quickfire questions. I mean, Max was such a great storyteller that we just ran out of time. If you head to our Instagram page, @CountryRoadsPod, you can hear the quickest quickfire questions ever with Max. We're also going to be doing more competitions and giveaways there. So please give that page a follow, @CountryRoadsPod. I've had such a good time making this podcast, and I've loved chatting with all our brilliant guests in Series 1. If you want more of where this came from in 2026, please leave us a review and tell us what you've loved about Country Roads. Every review, every comment, and every follow and share really does matter, and it helps us to keep making this podcast because we want more country fans to hear it. I'm a country fan. I want some country podcasts. Until next year, then, it's a see you soon from me, my producer Emma Roberts, and all the team here at Spiritland Creative. Take good care of yourself, and I hope to catch up with you soon.